One joke at a party, meant to be harmless, shattered my marriage, leaving me to pick up the pieces of what I'd carelessly destroyed.
The cheap champagne fizzed on my tongue, mirroring the nervous energy buzzing beneath my skin. Nick's company parties always felt like walking a tightrope in stilettos. One wrong step and you'd be tumbling into a pit of awkward small talk and forced smiles. Tonight, the annual end-of-year bash felt particularly precarious. I loved Nick, I really did. But his work events, they were another beast entirely. 2 glasses in, the anxiety began to loosen its grip. The hushed conversations around me blurred into a comfortable hum, and the forced smiles felt a little more genuine. Then Mr. William, Nick's boss, a man whose booming laugh could probably shatter glass, joined our little cluster. He and Nick were already in the midst of some good-natured ribbing about the upcoming football season, a rivalry that seemed to define half their office interactions. "Come on, Stephanie," Mr. William boomed, his arm momentarily resting on my shoulder, making me feel like I'd been knighted into their testosterone-fueled world. "Tell your man here he needs to get some sense knocked into him. The Eagles are going to wipe the floor with those Cowboys." I giggled, leaning a little closer to Mr. William, the alcohol lending me a false sense of camaraderie. Nick stood beside me, a slight tension in his jaw that I probably should have registered but didn't. "Oh, he knows William," I said, playfully nudging Nick's arm. "He just likes pretending he's got the winning team. Someone's got to keep him grounded. Remind him he's just an employee here." I punctuated the statement with a light touch on Mr. Williams' arm, a gesture that felt innocent in my buzzed state, but, I could see in the periphery, tightened Nick's expression further. Mr. William roared with laughter, slapping Nick on the back. "That's my girl, Stephanie. Always knows how to keep these worker bees in line. Alpha's gotta lead the pack, right, Nick?" Nick managed a weak smile, his eyes flickering between Mr. William and me. The room seemed to have quieted slightly, and all eyes felt suddenly, acutely on our little triangle. It was in that moment, seeing Nick's forced smile and the slightly uncomfortable shift in the air, that the ill-conceived joke tumbled out of my mouth. "Yeah, well," I said, a little too loudly, a little too brightly, "at least someone around here knows how to close a deal, unlike, well, you know." I waved a dismissive hand in Nick's direction, aiming for playful exasperation but landing somewhere closer to condescension. The laughter died. Mr. Williams' jovial grin faltered, and the silence stretched, thick and heavy. Nick's face, initially flushed with embarrassment, hardened into something I hadn't seen in a long time. Cold, stark frustration. The air crackled with unspoken tension. I tried to recover, to laugh it off, but the sound felt hollow, bouncing off the suddenly unforgiving walls. The rest of the evening was a blur of forced conversations and an overwhelming sense of dread that settled in my stomach. Nick remained stiff and distant, his earlier playful banter replaced with curt nods. The car ride home was suffocating. The silence was no longer a comfortable companion, but a hostile barrier. Finally, as we pulled into our driveway, Nick spoke, his voice low and controlled, each word measured. "It's not just the joke, Stephanie." My heart sank. I knew it. It's the constant undermining, the little digs, making me look like an idiot in front of my boss. Again. His voice cracked slightly. "I feel like you don't respect me." His words hit me harder than I'd expected. My tipsy bravado had evaporated, replaced by a gnawing guilt. But defensiveness flared up too. "Oh, come on, Nick, it was a joke. You're being too sensitive." "Sensitive?" he scoffed, running a hand through his hair. "I'm humiliated, Stephanie. You were practically draped all over William, teasing me like I'm some subordinate who needs to bow down to the alpha. That's not what a partner does." The argument escalated quickly, fueled by years of unspoken resentments and my own alcohol-induced recklessness. Words became weapons, hurled with increasing force. He accused me of being insensitive and attention-seeking. I retorted that he was insecure and couldn't take a joke. The fight culminated with Nick grabbing his old duffel bag from the closet, shoving a few essentials inside. "I need some space," he said, his voice devoid of emotion. Then, with a final, weary glance, he walked out the door. The slam echoed through the silent house, a definitive punctuation mark on our unraveling. Alone, the silence was deafening. I cycled through a maelstrom of emotions, anger at his overreaction, confusion at how a stupid joke could escalate so drastically, and a creeping sense of unease. I replayed the evening in my head, each moment magnified, each word scrutinized. "You crossed a line, Dan." My sister, Rachel's, Voice was gentle but firm when I recounted the night's events. Humiliating him in front of his boss like that? That's brutal. Her words resonated, chipping away at my defensiveness. Maybe I had gone too far. Maybe it wasn't just a joke. But the thought of apologizing stuck in my throat, a bitter pill I couldn't swallow. Instead, I did what felt easier, what offered immediate validation. I posted a cryptic, "Woe is me" status on social media, hinting at relationship troubles. The likes and sympathetic comments poured in, a temporary balm for my wounded ego, further digging me into a hole I hadn't fully realized I was in. Days bled into weeks. The silence from Nick was deafening. Initially, I expected him to return, to storm back in a fit of remorse, but the days stretched on, and my certainty began to waver. The house felt empty, the silence no longer a source of agitation but a heavy blanket of loneliness. The reality of his absence began to sink in, the weight of my actions pressing down on me. The arrival of the certified mail was a punch to the gut. Divorce papers. The stark legal language was like a splash of ice water, extinguishing any lingering hope that this was just a dramatic timeout. He was serious. Then came the whispers, the inevitable small-town grapevine. Leanne. Someone from his gym, apparently. Younger. Vibrant. Someone had described her. The thought of him with someone else, someone new, ignited a cold fury within me. My memories of our marriage, once a source of comfort, now felt like a cruel joke, juxtaposed against his seemingly effortless transition. Watching him move on, so easily, so quickly, felt like a betrayal on a whole new level. The hurt morphed into anger, a burning desire for retribution. I marched into a lawyer's office, my jaw set, determined that if our marriage was ending, it wouldn't be on his terms alone. He wouldn't get away with a clean break. A desperate, misguided idea took root. I dressed carefully, choosing an outfit I knew he'd always liked, and drove to Mr. Williams' office building. My heart pounded in my chest, a mix of anxiety and a perverse sense of determination. I managed to corner him near the water cooler, feigning a need for career advice. "Mr. William," I began, my voice a little too breathy, a little too suggestive. "About that night, I was just having some fun. You know how it is." I offered him a smile, a pathetic attempt at flirting. He looked at me, his expression bland. "Stephanie," he said, his tone surprisingly flat, "I'm happily married, and frankly, you're not really my type." He gave me a cursory glance, his eyes lingering dismissively. "Besides, there are plenty of other good-looking women around here who are a lot less trouble." His rejection was brutal, a sharp sting to my already bruised ego. It was a stark reminder that my actions had consequences, and trying to salvage something by doubling down on my previous mistakes was a fool's errand. The legal battle became my focus, a way to channel my anger and hurt. I argued over assets, over every single shared item, clinging to the remnants of a life that was no longer mine. It was a bitter, draining process, fueled by a desire to make him feel the sting of this separation, to acknowledge the wreckage we had both created. In the quiet moments, when the legal jargon faded and the anger subsided, a profound sadness settled in. Regret, a heavy cloak, wrapped around me. Was it all worth it? The one stupid joke, the need for validation, the spiral of bad decisions? I had fought for something, yes, but in the process, I had lost everything that truly mattered. The echoes of our shared laughter, the easy companionship, the comfortable silences, they haunted the empty rooms of our house. The joke that had seemed so insignificant in the moment had unraveled everything, leaving behind a tangled mess of heartbreak, pride, and the stark realization of what I had carelessly thrown away.